Get out, you're dead to us. My parents screamed as if I had just committed some unspeakable crime. What did I do? I refused to co-sign my sister's lease. My sister, the golden child who never faced consequences, slapped me across the face, kicked me out, and my parents cheered her on like I deserved it. I didn't fight back. I didn't even say a word. But what they didn't know was that my silence wasn't surrender. It was the start of something they would never see coming. I grew up in a house where the walls had ears, but they only ever listened to my sister. Her name? Let's just call her Rachel. To my parents, she was the sun, the moon, and every star in the night sky. To me, she was just a spoiled brat who learned early on that the world bent at her feet because mom and dad would always pick up the pieces. It didn't matter what she did, every mistake was brushed under the rug. She failed classes. Oh, school is just hard these days. The teachers don't understand her brilliance. She wrecked dad's car at 16. It's okay, honey, accidents happen. We'll get you a new one. She maxed out a credit card. Don't worry, sweetheart, we'll pay it off. Just remember not to do it again. Spoiler alert, she always did it again. Meanwhile, I was the afterthought. If I got a B instead of an A, it was why can't you be more like your sister? If I asked for new shoes, it was we don't have money for that right now. If I stayed out too late, it was you're irresponsible. You'll never make it on your own. The irony stung deeper with every passing year. By the time we were in our 20s, Rachel was still living at home, bouncing from one big opportunity to another, each one ending in disaster. I, on the other hand, had learned to keep my head down, work hard, and never expect anything from my parents. I had a decent job, my own small apartment, and a sense of independence that Rachel couldn't even spell, but to my parents, none of that mattered. In their eyes, success wasn't measured by responsibility. It was measured by how much they adored you. And Rachel was adored like royalty. She could do no wrong. One night over dinner, Dad casually mentioned, Rachel found a great place near downtown. Isn't that exciting? Mom's face lit up. Oh, yes. It's such a nice apartment. 2 bedrooms, great view, and close to everything she needs. I raised an eyebrow. That sounds expensive. Rachel smirked at me from across the table. Don't worry, little brother. I'll figure it out. Her tone was mocking, like she already had a plan in place and I was just too slow to catch on. A week later, I got the call. Hey, Rachel said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. So, I need a tiny favor. The landlord said I need a cosigner for the lease. You know, just a formality. Since you're so responsible, you'd be perfect for it. I almost laughed out loud. You want me to cosign your lease? Why not ask mom and dad? They can't, she snapped quickly. Their credit isn't great right now. But yours is. Come on, it's no big deal. I took a deep breath. Rachel, cosigning isn't just signing a paper. It means if you don't pay, I'm on the hook. I can't take that risk. There was a pause on the line before she hissed, wow. You're really that selfish? Click. She hung up, the storm was brewing, and I knew it. With Rachel, rejection wasn't just rejection. It was betrayal, and in my family, betraying Rachel meant betraying all of them. That weekend, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. Why would you say no to your sister? She needs you right now. I set down my coffee mug. Because I can't afford to get stuck paying her rent. She's not exactly responsible. Mom's eyes narrowed. She's your sister. Family helps family. I swallowed hard. Does family only mean helping her? When have you ever asked her to help me? She gasped as if I had said something vile. Don't talk about her like that. Rachel has been through so much. Yeah, so much, most of it self-inflicted. Later, Dad pulled me aside. His voice was low, almost threatening. Son, your mother and I expect you to step up. Rachel deserves this chance. Don't ruin it for her. I clenched my fists but kept calm. I'm not ruining anything. I just won't sign something that could ruin me. That was the moment I saw it in his eyes, the cold realization that I wasn't going to bend this time. And in my family, refusing Rachel wasn't just defiance. It was war. For the next week, I was the villain in my own house. Rachel barely looked at me unless it was to mutter something nasty under her breath. Mom gave me the silent treatment, except for the occasional sighs of disappointment. Dad barely spoke at all, though his glares said enough. I'd been invisible my whole life, but this was different. Now I was visible, but only as the enemy, and deep down, I knew something explosive was coming. The tension in the house was thick enough to choke on. Every word, every look, every sig hit was all aimed at me, the traitor who dared to say no to the golden child. I tried to keep my head down. Go to work, come home, eat quietly, sleep. But Rachel had a way of making herself impossible to ignore. One evening, she stormed into my room without knocking. "You're going to sign it," she declared. Tossing a stack of papers onto my desk, I glanced at the documents or lease agreement, with a blank line waiting for my signature. "No," I said firmly, not even looking up. Her eyes blazed. "Do you even understand what this means for me? This is my chance to finally live on my own." I set down my pen. "Rachel, living on your own means taking responsibility. Not dragging someone else down with you. If you can't qualify for the lease, maybe you're not ready." Her face twisted with rage. "God, you sound just like everyone else who doesn't believe in me. Why can't you just be supportive for once in your life?" I leaned back in my chair. "Support doesn't mean sacrificing my financial future. I'm not your safety net." That was when she spat out the words that sliced deeper than I expected. "You're just jealous. Jealous that Mom and Dad love me more. Jealous that I'm actually going to do something with my life." I laughed bitterly. "Rachel, you've been about to do something for the past 10 years. She gasped, like I had struck her. Then she snatched the papers back and stormed out, slamming the door so hard my picture frames rattled. The very next day, the ambush happened. I came home from work and found the three of them waiting in the living room like a jury. Mom sat stiffly with her arms crossed. Dad leaned forward with that disappointed frown he had perfected, and Rachel lounged on the couch, smirking like a queen who knew her executioners were about to do her bidding. "Sit down," Dad ordered. I didn't move. "What's this about?" "You know what it's about," Mom snapped. "We raised you better than this. Family helps family." I clenched my jaw. "I am helping by saying no. Signing that lease would destroy me if Rachel doesn't pay." Rachel rolled her eyes. "You act like I'm some kind of criminal." "I'll pay, okay?" "God, you're so dramatic." I turned to her. "You couldn't even pay back the $500 you borrowed from me last year." She flinched, then shot back. "That was different." "No, Rachel," I said firmly. "It's the same thing. You don't take responsibility. And I won't clean up your mess anymore." That's when Mom's voice went shrill. "Enough. We've had it with your selfishness. You will sign those papers, or you can leave this house." My stomach dropped. "Are you serious? You're kicking me out because I won't cosign?" Dad stood up now, towering over me. "Don't twist this. We are giving you a choice. Either stand by your sister, or you're no longer welcome here." I stared at them, feeling like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated like I didn't matter, all boiling down to this one moment. Rachel's smirk widened. She was enjoying this. "I'm not signing," I said, my voice low but steady. For a split second, silence filled the room. Then it exploded. "Get out. You're dead to us." Mom screamed, her face red with fury. Rachel jumped up, stormed over to me, and before I could react, slap. Her hand cracked across my face. "You pathetic loser," she sneered, shoving me toward the door. "Don't come back when you realize how much you need us." My cheek stung, but I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there. Dad's voice was like ice. "You heard her. Get out." I looked at all three of them, mother's blazing eyes, my father's cold indifference, Rachel's satisfied grin. I could have fought back. I could have screamed, cursed, thrown every ounce of pain and anger I had carried for years back in their faces. But instead, I said nothing. I walked upstairs, grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed it with what little I could carry, and walked right out the front door. No goodbye. No explanation. No begging, just silence, because silence was more powerful than any words I could have said, and deep down, I knew it scared them more than anything else. They had no idea what I was going to do next. The door slammed behind me with a finality that felt like a guillotine. No goodbyes. No hesitation. Just the sound of wood meeting metal, severing whatever thin thread still connected me to that house. I stood there on the porch, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, cheek burning from the slap. The night air was heavy, humid, almost suffocating. For a moment, I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. I had just been disowned, not for a crime. Not for betraying them. But for refusing to sign a piece of paper. The absurdity of it hit me like a punch to the gut. Years of trying to earn their approval, years of staying out of trouble, of working hard. Of doing everything right, and none of it mattered. All it took was one no to erase me from their lives. I walked down the street, each step mechanical. The neighborhood was quiet, houses glowing with the warm light of families who probably argued over what to watch on TV, not over whether their son deserved to stay under their roof. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Rachel. "Don't bother coming back. You made your choice." I stared at it, fingers itching to reply with something cruel, something that would cut as deep as her slap. But instead, I locked my screen and shoved it back into my pocket. Silence. That would be my weapon. I didn't have a plan. No backup. My apartment lease had ended 2 months ago when I moved back home temporarily to save money. Now, in an instant, I was homeless. I spent that first night in my car. Parked in the corner of a grocery store lot, windows cracked, seat reclined. My duffel bag served as a pillow. I thought I'd cry. I thought I'd scream. But all I did was stare at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over. Mom's voice shrieking, Dad's cold glare, Rachel's smug satisfaction, the slap. I touched my cheek, still sore, and a bitter laugh escaped me. So this is what family looks like. The next morning, I dragged myself into work, pretending everything was fine. Nobody noticed the shadows under my eyes, the stiffness in my movements. I wasn't about to explain, anyway. During lunch, I sat in the break room scrolling through apartment listings on my phone. Every price felt like a punch. Too high. Way too high. Out of reach, Rachel's smug words echoed in my head. Don't come back when you realize how much you need us. Maybe that was what they all thought, that I'd come crawling back, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, but they didn't know me as well as they thought. After work, I drove aimlessly, looking for a place to park for the night. A part of me wanted to scream at the sky, to curse the universe, to fall apart. But another part of meth quiet, simmering part was already plotting. If they thought I'd break, they were wrong. I wasn't going to crawl back. I wasn't going to sign Rachel's lease, and I sure as hell wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of watching me fail. Day by day, I started piecing something together. Showers at the gym, cheap meals from the dollar menu, my car doubling as both bedroom and closet. It was humiliating, sure. But it was also freeing in a twisted way. With nothing left to lose, I had nothing tying me down. I applied for every apartment I could find within my budget, even the questionable ones. Rejections piled up. Credit checks, deposits, endless paperwork, all slamming doors in my face. But each no only fueled the fire inside me. Because here's the thing. Once you've been told you're dead to your own parents, rejection from a landlord doesn't sting quite as much. One evening, as I sat in my car eating a cold sandwich, my phone buzzed again. Rachel. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. Rachel, hope you're enjoying sleeping in your car. All you had to do was sign. I gritted my teeth. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could tell her how pathetic she was. How Mom and Dad were only enabling her downfall. How I would rather rot in this car than give her what she wanted. But then I deleted every word I typed. No response. I smiled faintly. Let her wonder what I was doing. Let her stew in the silence, because the truth was, my silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. The weeks dragged on. I picked up extra shifts, saved every penny. And finally found a tiny studio apartment in a sketchy part of town. It wasn't much peeling paint, creaky floors, a view of a dumpster, but it was mine. I slept on the floor at first, using my duffel bag as a pillow until I could afford a mattress. I cooked ramen on a single hot plate. Slowly, the place began to feel like a sanctuary, a space where no one could kick me out, no one could demand anything of me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living under their shadow, and it felt good. But here's the funny thing about family who disowns you. They don't expect you to rise. They expect you to crawl back. They expect you to fail. They expect silence to mean surrender. And when they realize it doesn't, that's when the real explosion begins. Because the silence that once unnerved them, it was about to turn into something much louder than words. My studio apartment wasn't much. The walls were yellowed with age, the bathroom sink dripped constantly, and I could hear my neighbor's TV through the paper-thin walls at all hours. But when I closed the door at night and locked it, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. It wasn't homey, not yet. But it was mine. And that mattered more than I could put into words. I didn't tell anyone where I was living. Not coworkers, not old friends, and certainly not my family. It was my little secret. A fortress of silence. Those first few weeks, survival was my only focus. I picked up every shift I could get at work. Doubled down on overtime. I lived on peanut butter sandwiches and cheap instant noodles, scraping together every dollar, and slowly, I started to rebuild. The first one came when I bought a mattress. Nothing fancy, just a foam one from a discount store. But the first night I slept on it instead of the floor, I felt like a king. Next came a thrift store couch. A coffee maker. Even a small secondhand TV. Piece by piece, my apartment stopped looking like a holding cell and started looking like a life. The silence became my superpower. Rachel texted a few more times, mostly to gloat. Rachel, bet you regret not signing now. I'm moving into my place this weekend. Rachel, Mom says you're being ridiculous. Dad too. You should just apologize. Rachel, fine, stay gone. Nobody cares. Each time, I read the message, smiled to myself, and deleted it without responding. I knew my silence bothered her. Rachel thrived on conflict, on having the last word. By refusing to play, I wasn't just avoiding her games, I was winning them. Because silence doesn't give closure. It leaves people guessing. At work, things started shifting too. My manager noticed the extra effort I was putting in and offered me more responsibilities. Within a few months, I got a small promotion. The raise wasn't huge, but it was enough to finally breathe without worrying about whether I'd make rent. I started dressing a little better, eating healthier, even hitting the gym more regularly. Slowly, I wasn't just surviving, I was living, and the strangest part? I felt lighter. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the weight of their expectations, their constant comparisons, their disapproval. I wasn't the forgotten child anymore. I wasn't the villain. I was just me. Then, one night, as I was making dinner in my tiny kitchen, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. I froze, staring at the screen. My heart hammered. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won. Her message was short. Mom, your sister is having trouble with her landlord. Call me. I chuckled, shaking my head. Of course she was. I didn't call. A week later, another text came. Mom, she's late on rent. We told you this wouldn't have happened if you had just helped. There it was, the blame. Always redirected. Always twisted. This time, I didn't even chuckle. I just deleted it. The silence became my armor. Every attempt they made to pull me back into their chaos bounced right off me. Rachel's landlord threatened eviction? Not my problem. Rachel quit her job after 2 weeks. Not my problem. Rachel called me selfish, ungrateful, cruel. Still not my problem, because the truth was, for once in my life, I wasn't playing their game. And they had no idea how to handle that. Months passed. My apartment filled with the little comforts of stability, a bookshelf, a proper bed frame, even a rug. I started saving money, not just scraping by. I took a weekend trip to a nearby city, something I never thought I could afford before, and through it all, I stayed silent. I didn't tell my parents about the promotion. I didn't tell them I had my own place. I didn't tell them I was thriving while Rachel was drowning, because silence wasn't just peace, it was power. Every unanswered text, every ignored call, every secret success was a quiet rebellion, and little by little, the balance was shifting. Then came the day that confirmed everything I already knew. I was at work when my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Dad. I hesitated, then opened it. Dad, we need to talk. Your sister is in serious trouble. Please call. For a moment, I just stared at the words. The same man who told me I was dead to them. The same man who had watched as his daughter slapped me and shoved me out of his house. Now he was asking for help. I didn't call. I didn't reply. Instead, I locked my phone, took a sip of my coffee, and smiled, because for the first time in my life, I finally understood. Their chaos wasn't mine to fix, and my silence, it was louder than anything I could ever say. Silence may have been my weapon, but karma? Karma was the war. It didn't take long for Rachel's dream apartment to turn into a nightmare. I only knew because Mom's texts became more frequent, little desperate bursts that read less like updates and more like cries for help. Mom, Rachel is a month behind on rent. The landlord is threatening eviction. Mom, she's looking for a new job, but it's so hard right now. Why won't you call her? Mom, you could still fix this. If you just sign, the landlord will reconsider. I didn't reply. Not once. I pictured Rachel pacing around her overpriced apartment, blaming everyone but herself as the walls closed in. I pictured my parents twisting themselves into knots, trying to bail her out again, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. 2 months later, word got around through a distant cousin Rachel had been evicted. Apparently, she had tried to charm her landlord, insisting she'd catch up on rent next week. But landlords aren't parents. They don't care about excuses or golden child smiles. The notice went up, and Rachel was out. Where did she go? Back home, of course. Straight into my parents' arms. I could only imagine the scene, Rachel dragging her bags through the front door, crying about how unfair life was, my parents rushing to comfort her, swearing they'd help her get back on her feet, the same parents who told me I was dead to them. The irony was almost poetic. Not long after, the financial storm began. See, my parents weren't exactly rolling in money. Dad's hours had been cut back, and Mom's part-time job barely covered groceries. They had been dipping into savings for years to fund Rachel's endless misadventures, college courses she never finished, car payments she never made, business ventures that went nowhere. Now, with her eviction on their hands, they had to shoulder even more. Bills piled up. Their mortgage fell behind. I heard whispers through family gossip that they were taking out loans, borrowing from relatives, doing anything to keep Rachel comfortable. But the thing about enabling someone like her is this: the more you give, the more they take. And Rachel? She was insatiable. While their world crumbled, mine quietly flourished. At work, I earned another promotion. My tiny studio turned into a slightly bigger one-bedroom. I bought a decent used car to replace the beater I'd been driving. I even started taking online classes to advance my career further, and through it all, I said nothing. I didn't brag. I didn't gloat. I didn't even correct the relatives who assumed I was still struggling. Because I knew the truth. And I knew that silence was twisting the knife far more than words ever could. Then one day, I ran into an old family friend at the grocery store. Someone who had always been in my parents' orbit. "Oh, I heard about Rachel," she said with a pitying look. "Such a shame. She was such a bright girl." I raised an eyebrow. "What happened now?" The woman leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. "She's in debt. Credit cards, payday loans, you name it. Your parents are beside themselves. They keep saying you abandoned the family. But honestly," she gave me a knowing look, "I think you were smart." Her words hit me like a jolt. For so long, I had been painted as the villain. The selfish one. The traitor. But here was someone who saw through it. Someone who recognized the truth, and maybe just maybe others were starting to see it too. The real breaking point came a few months later. It was a Sunday afternoon when my phone rang. Dad's name flashed on the screen. For a moment, I debated ignoring it. But something in me wanted to hear his voice, if only to confirm what I already suspected. I answered. "Hello?" There was a long pause before he spoke, his voice heavy. "Your sister. She's in trouble. Serious trouble." I stayed silent, waiting. "She owes money," he continued. "A lot of it. She took out loans, credit cards. She can't pay them back. The collectors are calling the house non-stop." Still, I said nothing. Finally, his voice cracked. "We need help." The same man who told me I was dead to him was now asking for help. I closed my eyes, letting the irony wash over me. "Dad," I said quietly, "you made your choice. Remember?" There was silence on the line. For once, he didn't have a comeback. I hung up. That night, lying in my bed, I thought about everything. The slap. The words. The exile, and now, the fallout. Karma had finally come knocking. And it wasn't gentle. Rachel was drowning, my parents were sinking with her, and the fortress they had built around their golden child was crumbling brick by brick. And me? I was rising, not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to see them suffer, but because I had chosen silence, and silence had given me power. By the time a year had passed since the night they kicked me out, I had built an entirely new life. My one-bedroom apartment wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, quiet. And mine. I had furniture that wasn't just thrift store leftovers. My pantry wasn't stocked with ramen anymore. I even had savings, real savings, for the first time in my life. At work, I'd earned respect. Colleagues came to me for advice. My boss praised my dedication. I wasn't just scraping by anymore, I was thriving, and the best part? I had done it all without them. No Rachel, no mom, no dad, just me. Then, like clockwork, the past came knocking. It started with small things. A friend request from mom on social media. A like on a photo I'd posted of my new car. Then a text from dad out of nowhere. "Dad, proud of you, son. Looks like you're doing well." I stared at it, my chest tightening with a mixture of anger and amusement. Proud? The same man who told me I was dead to him was now proud. I didn't respond. Weeks later, Rachel herself broke the silence. "Rachel, hey. I know things got messy before. But maybe we can talk. I miss you." I almost laughed out loud. The same sister who slapped me, who shoved me out the door with glee, who gloated about me sleeping in my car. Now she missed me. No reply. It didn't stop there. My parents started calling more often. Leaving voicemails. The tone had changed from anger and entitlement to pleading. "Please call us back. Your sister is going through a lot. Family should stick together." Funny how their definition of family seemed to change depending on who held the power. When I was the one struggling, I was disposable. But now that I was stable, now that I had proven I could survive without them, suddenly I was valuable again. One evening, I came home from work to find an envelope taped to my apartment door. No return address, just my name written in mom's handwriting. I carried it inside, sat at the table, and opened it. Inside was a letter. A long, rambling apology filled with half-truths and excuses. We didn't mean the things we said. We were under stress. Your sister has been struggling, and we were just trying to support her. But the part that stuck out most was the end. "We want to see you. We want to be a family again." I set the letter down. My hands trembling not from sadness, but from the sheer audacity. They hadn't apologized for the slap. They hadn't acknowledged the words, "You're dead to us." They hadn't taken responsibility for enabling Rachel. No, this wasn't about love. This was about need. They needed me now. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, I had been invisible. Forgotten. The shadow standing next to Rachel's spotlight. And when I dared to say no, they erased me completely. But now? Now I was the one standing tall while they stumbled in the dark. The tables had turned, and they knew it. I didn't respond to the letter. Instead, I kept living. I took a vacation to the mountains, something I had always wanted to do but never could afford before. I stood at the top of a trail one morning, breathing in crisp air, watching the sunrise paint the sky, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not the shallow pride my dad texted about. Not the fake pride my mom scribbled in her letter, real pride. The kind you earn through struggle, silence, and survival. I thought about Rachel then, probably still at home, still blaming the world for her problems. I thought about my parents, drowning in the mess they had created by enabling her, and I realized, for once in my life, I didn't need them, but they needed me. When I returned from that trip, there was another voicemail waiting. This time, it was Rachel's voice. Hey. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I shouldn't have hit you. I shouldn't have said what I said. I was just scared. I still am. Her voice cracked. Things are bad, okay? I'm in debt. I can't keep living like this. Mom and Dad are struggling too. Please. Just call me back. Please. I listened in silence, my heart heavy but steady. It wasn't that I enjoyed her suffering. It wasn't that I wanted her to fall apart, but I couldn't ignore the truth. This was the bed she made, and for once, she was being forced to lie in it. That night, I sat on my couch, sipping coffee, staring at my silent phone. They had finally realized what I had known all along. You can't slap someone, kick them out, declare them dead, and then expect them to save you when the world comes crashing down. The tables had turned, and this time, I was the one with the power. The voicemail from Rachel echoed in my head for days. Her voice, once sharp and arrogant, had cracked into something unfamiliar, fragile, desperate. The same sister who had slapped me, who had shoved me out the door, now begged me to call her back, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel pity. I felt conflicted, because beneath all the resentment, beneath the years of being ignored, blamed, and discarded, she was still my sister, and despite everything, part of me wondered if I should answer. That weekend, I sat in my apartment with the letter from Mom on the table, Rachel's voicemail still saved on my phone. I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared at them like they were weights on a scale. On one side, forgiveness. On the other, freedom. Forgiveness meant reopening wounds. Sitting across from the same parents who once told me I was dead to them, pretending those words hadn't cut deep enough to leave scars. Listening to Rachel spin excuses, watching her fall into the same patterns while my parents enabled her again and again. Forgiveness meant risking the peace I had built, but freedom, staying silent, keeping the door closed, meant cutting them off for good. No calls. No visits. No family gatherings, no holidays. It meant moving forward without them, forever, and that choice, as liberating as it was, felt unbearably heavy, because no matter what they did, they were still my family. One night, I took a walk around the city. The streets buzzed with life, people laughing at outdoor cafes, music spilling from bars, couples holding hands. For years, I had envied people like that, people who seemed to belong somewhere, who had support systems, safety nets. But then it hit me. I had built my own safety net, not with them, not with blood, but with myself. Every paycheck saved, every piece of furniture bought, every small victory, it was proof that I didn't need their approval to survive. I had made it on my own, and maybe that was the real family I needed, the one I built with myself. The next morning, I sat down and finally dialed Rachel's number. She answered on the first ring, her voice shaky. Hello? Hello? Is that you? Yeah, I said softly. There was a pause, then a rush of words. I'm so sorry. For hitting you. For everything. I don't know what I was thinking. I need help. Please. I don't know what to do. I closed my eyes, listening. She sounded like a drowning person reaching for a lifeline. Rachel, I said carefully. I believe you're sorry. I really do. But sorry doesn't erase what happened. You slapped me. You kicked me out. You let Mom and Dad disown me without a second thought. And now that things are bad, you're calling me? She sniffled. I know. I know I was awful. But you're my brother. Please don't abandon me. Her words stung, because in them, I heard the irony. Please don't abandon me. The very thing they had done to me. I'm not abandoning you, I said firmly. I'm just not saving you. There's a difference. She went quiet. I hope you figure it out, I continued. But I can't be your safety net. Not anymore. And with that, I hung up. The silence afterward was deafening. But it wasn't painful. It was cleansing. For once, I had spoken the truth. Not in anger, not in spite, but in strength. A week later, another letter came. This one from Dad. It was shorter. I don't expect you to forgive us. I just want you to know that we were wrong. We chose poorly. And now we're paying for it. If you ever want to talk, my door is open. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it away in a drawer, because maybe one day, I would talk to him. Maybe one day, I would sit across from him and let him see what I had become, but not today. Today, I chose me, and that was the decision, not revenge. Not forgiveness. Not complete exile, just boundaries. For the first time, I had drawn a line, and I wasn't going to let anyone, Rachel, Mom, or even Dad, cross it again. That night, as I sat on my couch, sipping coffee in my quiet apartment, I realized something. I wasn't the forgotten child anymore. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't dead to anyone. I was alive. More alive than ever, because the decision I made wasn't about them. It was about me, and it was the right one. It's strange how quiet life becomes once you stop waiting for people to validate you. For years, I had lived like a shadow, measuring my worth by how my parents saw me, how my sister treated me. Every achievement I had was overlooked, every sacrifice ignored, because it was never enough compared to Rachel. She was the golden child, I was the extra. When they threw me out that night, when my mom's voice shook the walls with "You're dead to us," when Rachel's hand cracked across my face, it felt like my entire identity shattered. Who was I without them? What did I have if I didn't have my family? I thought I had nothing, but I was wrong. What I had was myself. Walking away forced me to see the truth, that blood doesn't automatically equal loyalty. That family isn't always about who raised you, but who respects you. That love without respect isn't love, it's control. I built a life on my own. It wasn't easy. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment, wondering if I had made a mistake. Wondering if I should have just signed that lease, swallowed my pride, and kept the peace. But every morning I got up and went to work. Every bill I paid with my own money. Every meal I cooked in my own kitchen. Every quiet evening where no one screamed at me, slapped me, or told me I was worthless, those were victories, small victories. But they added up, until one day, I realized I wasn't surviving anymore, I was thriving. And then came the twist. The same people who told me I was dead, the same family who turned their backs on me, came crawling back when life turned against them. Did it hurt to hear Rachel cry? Yes. Did my dad's letter make me pause? Of course. Did part of me want to forgive, to go back, to pretend it never happened? Absolutely, but the difference was this time. The choice was mine, not theirs, mine. For once, I wasn't the powerless one, and my choice wasn't revenge. It wasn't even hate, it was boundaries. Because here's the truth, forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back in. Sometimes forgiveness just means releasing the anger so it doesn't poison you. And then drawing a line so it never happens again. So, what's the lesson? That sometimes the family you're born into won't see your worth. They'll take and take until there's nothing left. They'll expect you to sacrifice everything for their comfort. And when you finally say no, they'll treat you like a villain. But that doesn't define you, you define you. And when you stop chasing their approval, when you stop begging for scraps of love, you find something better. You find peace. You find strength. You find yourself. If my parents and Rachel ever truly change, if they ever own their mistakes instead of covering them with excuses, maybe there will be a place for them in my life again. But until then, I don't owe them anything. I don't owe them my silence. I don't owe them my support. I don't owe them my life. What I owe myself is to keep moving forward. To keep building, keep growing, keep living the life they once said I'd never have without them. And maybe one day, if they look at me again, they won't see the son or brother they disowned. They'll see the man who proved them wrong. Because the truth is simple, I was never dead, I was just beginning.